Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. We had a discussion in committee, which I really appreciated from all of my colleagues. I brought in significant changes to the action recommend to ensure that, as I agreed to in committee, verbally, that the action recommend reflected the language we included to provide for a mid-year update by March of each year. We went back and looked at the data and saw when every month of when data is available, and to give staff ample time to ensure they could process that data. Landed on March as the mid-year update, and really this is to ensure that we continue to have ongoing conversation on our strategic plan, which of course is the stated objectives that we've all agreed to as a board and as a district. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And at this time, I would like to ask Board Member Blanco, who signed up.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to take this opportunity to thank Board Member Santos for listening and making some of the changes and some of the things that came up in committee. I do just have a couple additional questions, mostly because when we look at the recommend, we're looking to initiate changing board policy. And so I just take that very seriously, and I want to ask a couple questions to get some clarification. One of the things that I wanted to ask is, what is the intent in getting the quarterly updates and then the mid-year? Are we looking to just gather information, or do we want to have an opportunity to engage with the superintendent and with staff about those results? Through the chair.
Thank you. Through the chair, as discussed in committee, the language provides for quarterly updates optionally, but it actually only dictates a mid-year. So if the superintendent chooses to provide, a quarterly touch point in between, absolutely, is more than welcome to, as he does at any point in time, right, when he wishes to. But the update would be to provide for that mid-year touch point, transmittal of data at the appropriate committee, so that transmittal report, so that the board can review where we're at. Simply get a transmittal of an update of where we're at.
Okay, so through the chair, the intent is more for us to get information, or also have the opportunity to engage in discussion with the superintendent, with cabinet, about the information that has been presented to us. Through the chair.
Thank you. Through the chair, the language in the recommend is an update, so it's just a transmittal of information. Of course, we always have the option to, in any committee, to ask any questions we want. So if the board did have questions, they could ask at any point during new business, but this is a transmittal of information.
Okay, thank you. I also just wanted to, and I'm not sure through the chair if this is for Santos or maybe somebody from staff. My only concern when we look at the mid-year, I know and I think it was shortly after I came on board in January, we had a workshop to review some of the data. And so I'm just trying to anticipate and wonder, will a board meeting be enough time for that mid-year update? Or is this something where we may need to consider a workshop? And it's just a concern that I have. I don't know how it would work out, so I don't even know that anybody necessarily has the answer. But it's just a concern I have. And I just wanted to express that, and any comments you might have through the chair would be helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, through the chair, it's really, I'm leaving it pretty open-ended. The report is transmitted, but and really only the superintendent's office would know how long they might anticipate something would take. And we always have the option, to have a longer discussion, but really it will be up to us as the board how many questions we have, but it's pretty open-ended so that there's flexibility for the team.
Okay, are you satisfied? All right, thank you very much. All right, Board Member Gallen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair, I want to also echo the sentiments of Board Member Blanco with respect to some of the concerns that were expressed, and Board Member Santos, you made the appropriate revisions. Through the chair, I was very, very adamant about the onerous nature of potentially providing for quarterly updates. We did have an opportunity to discuss the staffing capacity, but one of the key points that I wanted to cite that was very salient in the amendment that was made at committee is as appropriate and as determined by the superintendent. I wanted that to really point out when we provided that language. He would be in a position to make that determination. And I think it's important through the chair to give some context to how we kind of got here. Circa 2 years ago, we learned through an item that I proffered that the district strategic plan had expired. There went a period where the Miami-Dade County Public Schools, the nation's fourth largest school district in the nation, had a strategic plan that had lapsed. There was no monitoring, there was no measurement, there was no real platform for getting feedback. With the support of my colleagues, the unanimous support of my colleagues at the time, I proffered an item, colleagues, to establish school board policy to make sure that that does not happen again. That prior to the conclusion of the strategic plan, I think it was 6 months prior to, that we begin the process, because it is not just about a document, it's about a fluid process that involves engagement, stakeholder input, and again, monitoring, measuring, and as you indicated, Board Member Blanco, an opportunity to get feedback. But in this amendment that was proffered and accepted, I didn't see this, and I still don't see it as something that calls for a requisite presentation. We kind of deviated from some of the presentations that we would do very frequently, and now you see transmittals, you see at the end of a committee an update in writing where there's an opportunity to ask questions. But I think it's critically important that we monitor the progress, because what we have found is that as the year culminates, that can be very onerous. And credit to the limited staff that oversees this work, and I appreciate the recommend to, because I think each of us was somewhat vexed at the limited number of team members that really have to coordinate and supervise this particular process. So I'm looking forward to some feedback in that regard. So I think it's an excellent practice. I not only say that as a lifelong educator, education leader, but even in the private work that I do, this is a best practice not to have something that's not monitored. We all know what gets monitored gets done, and I think we can lead by example as a board. We have our teachers, our principals, our district staff, whether it's school improvement planning, whether it's lesson planning, whether it's quarterly assessment, whether it's PM1, PM2, PM3, our students. I think the board will move closer in terms of building some mechanisms for accountability to the board, some transparency in the discussion, and more importantly, some enhanced impact on outcome. So I'm very pleased with the changes that were made. I want to thank the maker of the item, and we still have an opportunity through rulemaking to make some adjustments as they bring first reading, second reading, if there are some things we can make some adjustments to. But I want to definitely thank the maker of the item and look forward to supporting it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Board Member Calucci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to the maker of the item, I just want to thank you for making the appropriate amendments as we discussed in committee and listening to our input. I do agree that as a board, we need to monitor our strategic plan. It's crucial that we see that we're making the appropriate strides in what we're trying to achieve. And I'm very comfortable with the fact that the quarterly is based on determined by the superintendent. So with that, I can support the item. Thank you for making those changes, and those are my comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Do I have anyone else who wants to speak? All right. With that said, I too want to thank the maker of the item for listening carefully to recommendations that were made at committee, and for making the changes that are now in front of us. I'm still not convinced with the rulemaking portion, because I believe that before we start rulemaking, we have to find out, is this something that is going to work? Is it not? Is it something that we have to revisit? And so once the board, takes action, this action must be followed by the SOUP. So that is the one part that I'm still concerned about, because I think it's way too early at this point to initiate rulemaking. I also had the concern, and I stated this, that quarterly assessments might be not applicable to everything. Why? Because many of the objectives that we have are annual assessments. You can't do them, even if you want to prior to. I'm all for monitoring, and I'm all for making sure that we are reviewing all the information that is readily available to us. But that was another area that I did have a concern about, but you did put as appropriate for the superintendent to make that determination. So that's one that, I'm happy to see, because that way the superintendent will be able to determine which, if it is appropriate or not to bring any, or to bring many of them. I don't know. And also, on recommend number 2, and we all talk about it, that, we're very limited in human capital, and this is a lot of work for a very small department. However, we have to also keep in mind that we all have many items that we bring that deal with IT, that deal with, financial services, that deal with human capital, maintenance, so on and so forth. And just want to be sure that, we are very cognizant of the fact that we cannot expect to have more people, put into those departments so that some of these requirements can be fulfilled. So those were my concerns. Again, the main one is really the rulemaking issue. I am fully supportive of the other part, as I said, and of the changes you made, leaving it up to the superintendent to deem if necessary or not, if it's appropriate or not. But the rulemaking, I think, is something that we could, we should definitely wait to see the outcome of what works and what doesn't work. And those are just my opinions on this particular item. But I thank you very much for listening carefully to many of the areas that we address at committee. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. I didn't have an opportunity to discuss this item during committee, as I was not there, but I certainly want to echo some of your sentiments about initiating rulemaking. This is something that we'll be doing new, and so I'm happy to advance it today and evaluate it when it comes in the policy format. But what is it that we're formalizing, right? What is the, we don't have an exact process. We don't, we're kind of gelling as a board over the course of this last year. So I'm apprehensive about formalizing a process that we might have to say, well, this is not really working, let's adjust it, and you got to adjust it again. I certainly support evaluating our performance as a district against our strategic plan, because that's the whole point of a strategic plan. I am apprehensive about having quarterly reports that now require remediation as we get to another quarterly report, and it just becomes like a game, like swinging from vine to vine like Tarzan, from report to report to report, when in effect, the idea is for this to be an ongoing process that we're living as an administration, as a board. So those are the concerns I have, where I don't, in the same way that we don't like to teach our kids to a test, I don't want us to govern the district from report to report. I mean, it's our job overall as a board to constantly be evaluating the matrix that is our strategic plan, and I know that the superintendent and his administration does the same thing on an ongoing basis. So those are my my two concerns. I'm happy to advance it today and approve it from my perspective, but I'm going to be looking at how this comes back to us.
Thank you. Dr. Bendros-Mendengo.
Yes, Madam Chair. I know we have a good number of viewers and listeners, and I want to ask this question again that was asked in committee. How many people do we have in this department?
Who will be responding, Mr. Superintendent? All right.
Good evening. Through the chair, in the Office of Strategic Planning and Initiatives, people specific to just this work around the strategic planning, that number would be 2.
Thank you very much. I'm hoping through the chair that the audience heard that, because we do require quite a bit, and it always gets done. I'm a little bit concerned about not over asking, because that's our job, but what we want to do is make sure that some of the brightest and best people that we have, I just hope we don't go overboard. That's what I'm hoping. And to the maker of this item, I know you study long, you study hard. Very pleased with your actions, recommends, but I want to, of course, have it known, put on record, that that is my concern. If we had more people, I probably wouldn't even have that concern. But I know I might not, I would want you to know that I do call on these people personally. And they never, ever, ever don't come through. So I'm very proud of them, but I want to make sure that what we look for and what we get, of course, is something that we expect. Our expectations are high. So I would want to make sure that when we come back for January 2024, that we at least know exactly what happens in that department. Maybe that's what I should do. Sit down with the people in that department and see what they do. Not that I don't think you do a lot, because I know you do. So maybe that's what I will do. Not maybe, I will. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Dr. Galland, sir.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to follow up on a few comments. I know it's not my item, but I'll take a page out of a colleague's comments years ago. Once the item comes before the Assembly, it belongs to the Assembly. And I was very thoughtful in committee when I made the recommendation for the amended language, of which we had some consensus on, but I want to just be very clear for the listening public relative to what we're discussing here. The initiating of rulemaking is not to initiate a process. It's very, very lucid in what it's stipulating. What it's initiating a rulemaking for is a requirement. And there's one requirement, and that is to provide a mid-year update relative to what I described in a district across the country as the strategic plan being the engine of the organization. A strategic plan is the engine of the organization. It tells you where you're going, how many miles you need, how far you've progressed, whether you need to take a detour, or whether you need to abandon the trip. And that's the only provision outlined in the rulemaking step. And I want to thank the Vice Chair, because he was correct. Through rulemaking, we have several bites to have a discussion regarding this. So any misunderstanding or representation that this is now establishing a process is incorrect. The rule is only establishing a requirement. Why? Through the chair, because we didn't have one, number one, for an annual update. And as I share with my colleagues relatively new to the board, the strategic plan expired. The Miami-Dade County Public Schools had no strategic plan. So this is another step to move toward implementing the best practices that we can. Secondly, I said it, and our chair can recall specifically years ago when we got on the board, relative to the success centers and the district's decision to abandon suspensions of students. And I was relatively new to the board, and so was our chair, and I posited it then and I posited it now, that policy drives practice, not the other way around. The board sets policy for practice, and the only practice that is being proffered here is to have a requirement for a mid-year update. The language is flexible as appropriate, no requirement, and again, we have an opportunity to address the language that comes back to us through rulemaking. So I fully support the item. I think it's one of the most exceptional practices that we have. And to the question that Dr. Bendross Mendengal asked publicly, and I thank you for asking that question publicly, because we asked it in committee. This provides an opportunity for the superintendent to review staff within existing resources, and he is in the best position to make a determination where staff should go. I know sometimes we have a proclivity to want to wade into that water relative to how many people you have, who you're going to hire, all of those kinds of things, open positions. That is outside of the purview of the board. So what this recommend number 2 is asking him within his purview to review that and to make a determination what's appropriate for his staff, knowing that there is a pathway toward cross-pollination, that within the strategic planning framework, departments work across the board. So I just want the public not to, in no shape, form, or fashion, misconstrue what this is. It's not a new process. It's a requirement. It's not an additional, it's not a request for additional staff. It's a review by the superintendent. And again, it is something that pertains to what I've described as the engine of the organization. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Gallen, and it's great to have this discourse, and everyone has their opinions on how they perceive certain things, and I certainly appreciate that. I personally, though, however, will, for the record, state that I personally believe that we need to find out whether a program is effective or not, whether it's working or not, truly before initiating rulemaking. But that's my, that's how I opine on that particular issue. But with that said, I do appreciate all of the, again, discourse that we are having, because strategic planning is the blueprint for us. And this is what we have for the next 5 years to come. And it's imperative that we do monitor and that we are on top of everything that is happening. And if something is not working, that we remediate it, we address it, we revise it, and we take action whenever it's needed. But as I alluded to earlier, again, there are many objectives that take more than 1 year to accomplish. More than 1 year. Some much more than a quarterly basis, and some even more than mid-year point. But others, as stated by Board Member Santos, would be up to the superintendent to review, determine, and recommend. Maybe there are some quarterly ones that he feels, hey, this really needs to be looked at quarterly, and that would be fine. That is why I was very pleased with your change in the recommend regarding that. I, obviously support the item, although I am not in agreement with the rulemaking portion, but that's my personal opinion on that, and I say it for the record. Thank you very much. And at this time, if you would like to say something else, Board Member Santos?
Sure. Thank you
Yes.
to all my colleagues. I think one thing that's clear from everyone's comments is that everyone truly believes in progress monitoring and truly believes that our strategic plan is our blueprint. We are 3 months away from being in 2024, and that blueprint goes through 2026. So really, it's only 2 years left of that strategic plan, which is certainly, time's flying by. And so I think if there's one thing I've been consistent in since I got on this board, it is the constant centering of evaluating and implementing best practices in governance to move our district forward. And I do believe it is important that we begin the process of that iterative initial reading, final reading, to understand how we implement this in perpetuity, because it's just a best practice, regardless of what plan, regardless of what board, regardless of what superintendent. That's the true intent of the item. So I thank you all for your support and your comments, and look forward to going on this journey together and receiving the first report in March. Thank you.
I don't think I have anyone else that wants to speak on this item at this time. Do I hear a motion? Is there any additional co-sponsorships? Okay. Is there a second? Does anyone? All right. You moved it. Someone has to second it. Yes. Who seconded? All right. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. All right, any opposed? All right, thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve the item as amended? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. We now move to H13, lightning detection systems in athletic events. And this was co-sponsored by myself, Mr. Robert Alonso, Ms. Lucia Baez-Geller, Dr. Dorothy Bendros-Mendengal, Ms. Mari Blanco, Ms. Monica Colucci, and Ms. Luisa Santos. I do not have any speakers that have signed up, so Board Member Galland, sir, this is your item. Please present it at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to thank all of my colleagues for their co-sponsorship of this item. Chair Maria Rojas, Mr. Robert Alonso in his absence, Ms. Lucia Baez-Geller, Dr. Dorothy Bendros-Mendengal, Ms. Mary Blanco, Ms. Monica Colucci, and Board Member Luisa Santos. This item speaks to lightning detection systems at athletic events. In the context of the item, believe it or not, the nation's third largest district has ownership of certain facilities in addition to our schools, and we know we represent one of the strongest and most successful athletic districts in the country. But first and foremost, to our students' participation, is their safety. I served witness personally at a recent football game in which our process for detecting lightning, I felt, was not as state-of-the-art as it could be. Meaning we don't have an installed system at our facility for the detection of lightning. We know that if you look at various municipalities, parks, and clubs and things of that nature, they're utilizing some of the best technology of many of you may hear in your neighborhood. We don't have that. Our athletic staff at the school level are charged with utilizing an app on their phones to make some determination relative to lightning strikes. This was a grave concern to me. There is some history of loss of life that have vexed many people in this district, individuals on this board, and we know how severe this is. We are looking at this as an opportunity to make that assessment of our district-owned facilities and schools as well, where our student athletes and our band and our students in general participate and explore the feasibility of having an installed, up-to-date, very advanced technology available system to detect lightning to save lives, starting first and foremost with our district-owned facility in which our student athletes compete week in and week out. That's the item, and again, I want to thank all of my colleagues for their support, and if there are any questions, I'll be responsive to those. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.